On today's episode of UMTV News, multiple states are dealing with the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. We'll have more on what the powerful storm left behind.
Plus, Israel is under attack after Iran launched hundreds of ballistic missiles towards the country earlier today.
And later on, Tim Walz and J.D. Vance will take the stage tonight for the first and only vice presidential debate hosted by CBS.
All this and more on today's show. UMTV News starts right now. Hello and welcome to UMTV News. I'm Melissa Beatty.
And I'm Zach Macer. Thank you for joining us. At least 140 people have died as a result of Hurricane Helene that made a landfall in Florida as a Category 4 storm on Friday, and then traveled through and affected 5 more states. Right now, hundreds of people are still accounted for in North Carolina as the state struggles to deal with the aftermath of Helene.
I think we're all kind of coming out of that shell shock. It took me seeing, this for the first time to really grasp, everything that everybody's been through.
It's a before and after that leaves you in disbelief. We flew over Asheville's flood-ravaged River Arts District Saturday. Today, rivers have receded, revealing the heartbreaking extent of the damage.
The artists that, were there, and just, it's a big part of our community, and for it to just be wiped out, that's a lot. It's a big hit for us.
Devastating as it was, flooding wasn't the only thing that displaced thousands.
We just heard like the loudest crack and gust of wind ever, and then before we knew it, a tree had come through our bedroom.
We met Mark and Alexis among the many gathered on this bridge overlooking the French Broad River as they took stock of what Tropical Storm Helene unleashed on their community.
I raised my kids pretty much over here. I would bring little man and strap him to me while I bartended, and everything's gone.
While they're among the hundreds here that are now homeless,
we're staying at a hotel in downtown right now. They're housing us.
Devastation is widespread and complete, but there are also signs all around that they won't be alone as they try to recover.
I think we're all just trying to figure out what's next and how to take care of each other. There's nothing else we can do.
President Biden is planning to fly over Asheville on Wednesday to survey the damage.
Skies have ignited and sirens are sounding all across Israel on Tuesday as Iran launched about hundreds of missiles at the Jewish state. Reporters in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem counted about 200 missiles flying above them. Iranian media reports Tehran said it targeted Israel in response to the killing of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah and 2 other leaders. The Iranian mission to the United Nations said on social media Iran's response has been, quote, duly carried out and warned against retaliation. Dozens of missiles were intercepted, but it's unclear how many. The Israeli military says some missiles made direct impact in central and southern Israel. Israel reports no one was injured and warned of serious consequences. The conflict between Israel and Hezbollah coincides with the 1-year anniversary of the Hamas attack on Israel, October 7th. Ariel Weil joins us now live to tell us what is happening in South Florida to mark the grim anniversary. Ariel?
It's been almost a year since Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th, and Israel retaliated, starting a war with the terrorist organization. In the past year, some 45,000 people have been killed on both sides, and more than 100,000 people have been injured. Many of those affected are Israeli defense soldiers. Now, a group of Israeli soldiers are here in Miami on a transformative journey hosted by the New York-based nonprofit Belev Echad. Take a look. Israeli Defense Force soldier Leroy Dahan faced the Hamas attacks on October 7, 2023, in a kibbutz in southern Israel, taking 10 RPG hits to his vehicle. Almost a year after those attacks, Leroy and 7 other IDF soldiers have come to Miami for a transformative journey. The trip was organized by a New York-based nonprofit called Belev Echad.
It's the best place to wounded soldiers to be, because everybody knows each other and they know what you are going through because they are going through the similar things.
In the past year, Belevechad has helped Gil, Leroy, and more than 1,500 other soldiers receive medical help and food packages, take fun trips, and get the chance to socialize.
I think the hardest part of my job is learning all the stories. I hear hundreds of stories from our soldiers all the time, and it's very emotionally difficult.
The Silverman family hosted a fundraising event at their Coconut Grove home, bringing together friends, family, and community leaders. Guests heard firsthand accounts from soldiers alongside distinguished attendees.
We're going to support heroes who are fighting fights that are worth fighting around the world to preserve our freedom and quality of life.
We've taken a real strong stand in support of Israel in regards to October 7th. And certain people have wavered on that. And to me, it's very perplexing, why you would waver on the number one ally for the United States of America, especially in the Middle East.
You can get involved with Belevechad by volunteering, attending fundraising events, or donating to support their mission of helping wounded IDF soldiers rebuild their lives. Belevechad creates a strong support network offering soldiers like Leroy essential aid and resources to recover and move forward.
Throughout my time listening for Belevechad, I've seen Americans have the idea of how did this happen? Why did this happen? Who let this happen? And the Israelis have the mentality of how do we recover? What's next steps? What's moving forward?
My one advice that I bring to wounded soldiers all the time is find your own community that will hug you, that will be with you. In Belevechad, they took you and put you your own suit that you need.
Their next event is their annual gala in New York City on November 15th. For UMTV, I'm Ariel Weil.
Thank you, Ariel. But now it's time for a short break.
But when we come back,
We will tell you why the vice presidential debate tonight could be a major factor in the presidential election.
plus we'll take you to one local event that aimed at attracting Latino voters. We'll be right back.
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that I would never be able to get over it and that my kids wouldn't have a father. I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. For the longest time, fear held me back from ultimately being who I wanted to. I had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
The first and only vice presidential debate between Tim Walz and J.D. Vance is set for tonight at 9 p.m. The 90-minute debate will not have a live studio audience and topics will not be revealed beforehand. Typically, fewer people watch vice presidential debates than presidential debates. But this debate could be a major factor given how close the race is. The debate will air on CBS News and will be simulcasted on the ABC network and streamed on ABC News Live.
Nearly 50,000 members of the International Longshoremen's Association went on strike against the nation's East and Gulf Coast ports at midnight on Tuesday. The strike comes after months of contract negotiations between the union and the United States Maritime Alliance, which left union workers unsatisfied. The alliance represents the major shipping lines, terminal operators, and port authorities. It says it has offered wage increases, but the union says those do not take into account sacrifices made by their workers.
If we have to be out here a month or 2 months, this world will collapse. Go blame them. Don't blame me. Blame them.
The strike could stop the flow of a variety of goods over the docks of almost all cargo ports from Maine to Texas and could impact many consumers if it continues. The Manufacturers Association is calling on Congress to end the strike if President Joe Biden does not.
The elections are exactly 5 weeks away from today, and all over the country, campaigning and election-related events are in full swing. Carolina Lugo Gomez went to one local event that sheds a light on some of the key issues that could significantly influence voters. And she joins us now live to tell us more. Carolina?
SAG, members of the Miami community came together this past weekend to talk about the important issues facing the Latino community for the 2024 presidential election.
Books and Books, a local Miami bookstore known for cultivating community engagement,
recently teamed up with the Miami Freedom Project for an event titled An Afternoon with Paola and Jorge Ramos.
Bookstores that help to support and give back to the community, which is something we've always wanted to do.
The local bookstore's founder, Mitchell Kaplan, hopes to serve, connect, and inspire his community through events like this one. Throughout the event, the father-daughter duo, well known for their powerful voices in journalism, discussed some of the pressing issues facing the United States as well as the Latino community in today's politics.
Unfortunately, we're so used to misinformation and disinformation at this time, no? And that's why journalists are more important than ever.
With the presidential election being about a month away, they believe that these discussions are more relevant now than ever. Businesses like Books and Books and organizations like the Miami Freedom Project and authors like Paola Ramos and Jorge Ramos are all partnering together to bring awareness to the city of Miami to keep them well informed for the election coming up in November. One of the topics Paola and Jorge Ramos tackled was the imposing threat of disinformation in the United States in 2024. They explain how false claims can create confusion and impact how voters perceive candidates and policies, especially when it's spread by political elites.
Recently, we've been hearing that people were supposedly eating dogs and cats in Ohio. That is not true. However, that kind of misinformation is all over the place.
To close the event, Jorge and Paola Ramos emphasized the importance of staying well-informed in today's fast-paced information environment.
Making sure that whatever we believe is the truth. Because it would be a shame that you vote or that you're influenced by lies.
Books and Books is always hosting events for the Miami community. To find out more, visit www.booksandbooks.com. Reporting for UMTV, I'm Carolina Lugo Gomez.
Thank you, Carolina. And in preparation for the 2024 election, the League of Women Voters of Miami-Dade County came to campus last week to answer students' questions about the voting process. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization working to make sure everyone is informed for the upcoming election. The presentation covered important topics such as the amendments on the Florida ballot, how to request an absentee ballot from your home state, and how to register to vote in Florida. The organizers also answered questions on early voting and voting by mail. They emphasized the importance of student voices in the election and knowing who and what they are voting for.
You know, it's important because we want to decide who's going to be our next president, but these things at the more local level, they affect our day-to-day life just as much or more than who the president is. So I think it's incredibly important for students to get out and vote.
The deadline to register to vote in Florida is October 7th. Students can register through the University of Miami's Get Out the Vote website or at one of the Get Out the Vote events on campus.
And one person who is hoping to be able to vote in 5 weeks is former President Jimmy Carter. He made history today as he celebrated his 100th birthday. Carter is the first president in U.S. history to hit the centennial mark, making him the oldest living president. A number of events were held to celebrate the big day, including a flyover of military jets over his hometown called Plains in Georgia. Carter entered hospice care in February 2023 after a series of hospital stays. He is a cancer survivor and underwent brain surgery after a fall in 2019.
And finally, the Miami Hurricanes football team remains undefeated after scraping out a win against the Virginia Tech Hokies last Friday at Hard Rock Stadium. It took until the very last play for Miami to confirm the victory against Virginia Tech. That's after a desperation throw by the Hokies was at first called a touchdown before being reviewed by officials and overturned. Miami was losing by 10 points in the fourth quarter before coming back and scoring 2 touchdowns. The Canes travel to Berkeley, California to next take on the Cal Golden Bears on Saturday at 10:30 p.m.
What a game. Just an amazing reaction from the fans once it was confirmed that Miami had won that game.
Yeah, I mean, I was on the sidelines for that game, and I can assure you the crowd was crazy once that touchdown was overturned.
Absolutely. That's all the time we have for this edition of UMTV News. Thank you for joining us.
We'll be back at the same time next week. Have a good day.